Good morning. My name is Jay Albertson. I am just finishing up my master's in the GIST program at University of Arizona. And for my capstone, I examined the spectral uh, vegetational recovery following the Owyhee Mountains 2015 soda fire. This is a fire which I am a little bit personally involved with in the monitoring post post fire. It started August 10th of 2015. Later in the season, it was contained on August 23rd. You can see here some of the habitat impacts. Most of this is winter habitat, so critical for the ecology of the species affected. And most notably among those species affected were the greater sage grouse, which accounts for almost the entire fire perimeter, or fire area that was burned. Inside that were 10 occupied breeding leks, which are the ancestral, I guess you could say, breeding grounds where their mating displays are performed. So those are critical to the continuation of the species. Immediately following the fire that fall, reseeding efforts began. 1.4 million sagebrush and bitterbrush seedlings were outplanted across the fire area, and on top of that were 60,000 acres of aerial seeding. Inside that seeding, you see grasses like these here in this picture. Close up, you can see they're bunch grasses, so they kind of clump together in their own species and in their own patches, which create less continuous fire fuel source. Which is important for browse for animals, and also for maintaining the fire regime that is characteristic of this sagebrush steppe. This is the study area. This is a map from the Bureau of Land Management, which shows the fire perimeter. Inside you have wild horse and burrow management areas. You have scattering of state, federal, and private land. Just a little bit to the northeast of this, you have Boise, the capital of Idaho. This is the Idaho-Oregon border. This affected not only private landowners, but also private citizens who had their grazing allotments burned and were then closed after the excessive damage that was done. So for the methodology in particular, I wanted to examine the vegetational recovery using NDVI and DNBR. NDVI is the normalized differenced vegetative index, and it shows the health and quality of plants using spectral imagery, which I'll demonstrate in a moment. To begin with, I wanted to have an average to compare the follow-up years with, so that I would have a better idea and wouldn't be influenced by a one-off bad or especially good year. So I wanted to take the years 2013 through 2015 to average those NDVI values and then compare them against 2018 and 2020. And then for the different normalized burn ratio, I compared the NBR values of just pre-fire, just a few weeks, and then I decided to compare that to 1 year after the containment date within a week or two. I would have liked to have used data from the same year just to get a better image of the burn severity, which is what the NBR measures. However, I was unable to because of cloud cover or continuous smoke pollution. And I didn't want to wait until there was snow on the ground to affect those values. Here we have the 3-year average of 2013 to 2015. You can see it does look pretty monochromatic. Over here we have this lake, a small reservoir, which is the main area you can see where there is dead vegetation. Besides that, though, for the most part, it's covered in what we'd classify as unhealthy vegetation, which does, I think, stand to reason based on the ecological nature of this study area, where I think you can count on one hand the number of trees in the fire perimeter. Everything else is just perennial grasses, annual grasses, shrubs, and a few leafy forbs to browse on. The areas where you can see moderate health instead would be areas which follow creek beds. This here is Sucker Creek. You can see a little bit of Reynolds Creek here. And then these are the areas higher in elevation with more variation in their topography. So there's draws and gulches, which collect more water and gain more vegetation. This graph here is just to show how narrow the NDVI values are. Almost everything falls in between that first and between 0 and 0.33, which is that first bucket we see. And as we move into 2018, not much of that changes, which I initially found pretty surprising given how much damage the fire did to these grass species specifically, and the sagebrush, which you find here. You can see a bit more vegetation, a bit healthier vegetation along these creek beds I mentioned before, and a little bit more in the mountainous areas on this south central edge. Finally, in 2020, if you switch back and forth a little bit quickly there, you can see a little bit healthier vegetation moving further south. And finally, to better visualize these changes, I reclassified them to show more incremental, how the changes affected the landscape. You can see here these values in orange are areas where the NDVI decreased, or the plant health decreased. Mostly, again, a little bit confounded by the lake. However, there is similar to what we were seeing in the 2018 map. This area here and in the south central area did experience largely an increase in overall vegetation health. And finally, we can see the 2020, there is a much bigger overall improvement in vegetation health here. it's a little bit harder to trace those creek beds to find the areas where we would expect to see an increase in vegetation. But the next part of this project was to use the different normalized burn ratio of the soda fire. For this, I used different spectral bands from the NDVI to measure the burn severity, the damage to the soil organic layer, the other effects of a burn like this, which could include soil moisture loss, because of partially because of the reseeding efforts, especially in this less remote, less mountainous area in the Northwest. You see much better regrowth versus the more severe areas in the southern edge. However, I did also visualize this differently to kind of clear up this unburned area you see with all the gray. I wanted to narrow down what the classification for the unburned or neutral was. So here I have these NBR changes, and as you'll see from the key in the fire severity, these negative values are associated with higher regrowth rates, while the positive values are associated with more severe burns. So here you can see a little bit of the burn severity correlating with the southern edge, and a little bit of the enhanced regrowth correlating with the northern edge here. In addition to the reseeding efforts, which had a large impact on how the analyses turned out, which was, I think, less of what I expected to see. Most of these analyses are done on forest fires, things where you will see a much higher rate of burn severity due to the nature of the fuel sources. These grasslands burn really quickly and at a relatively, I should say, cooler temperature compared to the intense fires that you can get in forest fires. The damages to the seedbed layer are much less from grass fires, which is what cheatgrass thrives on. Cheatgrass is an invasive species which has been plaguing Idaho for increased frequency in the last 50 years or so. But the annual grasses, like cheatgrass, grow less in those bunch grasses, which I referred to before, and more in a continuous carpet. You can kind of see in the bottom of the screen, comparing those growth patterns. And because the cheatgrass will grow in this carpet, it provides a continuous fuel source. So vegetation above the ground burns very quickly, while preserving the seedbed, which contains things like cheatgrass and also native species. However, cheatgrass is much better equipped to take advantage of early rains, early thaws. They're much quicker out of the soil to germinate, which helps them outcompete a lot of the native species, which is also likely a cause for the neutral or unburned readings within the analyses that I showed before. In areas where there is increased burn severity, it damages that soil organic layer, the seed bed, and that can lead to more more of a chance for native species, or especially bigger species like sagebrush, compared to these grasses, to grow, because there's less of an opportunity for the cheatgrass to take hold. In continuation of research like this, I would like to examine if there's a way to use spectral data to pin down exactly the reflectance of invasive species like cheatgrass versus species like Sandberg's bluegrass, or other beneficial species, which have been so critical for the fire, the post-fire recovery. And I guess with that, do we have any questions?